Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. I ask for an approval of the agenda today.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Move for approval of the minutes of October 9th, 2017. Is there a first?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the consent agenda. Note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. I've been asked to remove item 4 from the consent agenda, which is modify speed limit on James Robertson Parkway between Church Street and Spring Street, South 5th Street, from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. I'd like a motion to move that from the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Also, Councilmember Sledge has requested that item 9, authorized traffic signal at Gale Lane and Granny White Pike. I think they want to do some more study on this, so I'd like to make a motion or have someone make a motion to remove this from the agenda to defer indefinitely while the further study is done. Is there a motion? All right, there's a first. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Do any other commission members have an item?
I just had a question for clarification for number 5, and wanted to check that that was the west side opposite TPAC, or was it the same side as TPAC?
That is the west side. It is outside of where the state trooper's office is at, and it is across from TPAC. This will serve TPAC and also War Memorial Auditorium.
Okay. Can we just talk about that one then later?
Okay. Well, would you like to make a motion to remove that item,
Yeah,
please,
I'll make a
Commissioner?
motion to remove that one.
All right. So there's been a motion to remove authorized passenger loading zone on west side of 6th Avenue North at Union. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that item has been removed as well. Okay. All right. Consent agenda 11-17. Item 1, authorized trucks restriction over 8 tons on Old Charlotte Pike from Charlotte Pike by McCory to Sawyer Brown, requested by Councilmember Rosenberg. Item 2, authorized traffic signal on Bell Road and Mossdale Road, requested by Councilmember Johnson. Item 3, authorized all-way stop on Park Circle and Ackland Park Drive, requested by Councilmember Murphy. Item 6, authorized trucks restrictions over 8 tons on 5th Avenue North from Lafayette Street to Division Street, requested by Metro Public Works. Item 7, authorized no right turn trucks southbound Lafayette Street at Division Street. Item 8, modify the valet zone hours at 3201 Weston Avenue, 10 Angel Restaurant, from a.m. and p.m. to 4 p.m. to 12 midnight, requested by Parking Management Company. Item 10, authorized traffic signal at 16th Avenue South and Horton Avenue, requested by Councilmember Sledge. Item 11, authorized residential permit parking on Grantland Avenue from Benton Avenue to Bradford Avenue, requested by Mario Avila, with letter from Councilmember Sledge in support. Item 12, authorize no parking on Collier Avenue, requested by Councilmember Freeman. This is on the north side from Nolensville Pike to 800 feet east of Nolensville Pike, on south side from Nolensville Pike to 600 feet east of Nolensville Pike. Authorize truck restrictions on McGavick Pike from Pennington Bend Road to Park Drive, requested by Councilmember Syracuse. Authorize all-way stop at 24th Street and Dabbs Avenue, requested by Councilmember Hager. Authorize stop control on a Dean Street at McAlpin Avenue, requested by Councilmember Anthony Davis. Modify speed limit on Shelby Avenue from South Fifth Street to Shelby Park from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, requested by Councilmember Withers. Authorize stop control Beachmont Place at Crescent Hill Road, requested by Metro Public Works. That is the consent agenda for today. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
There's a first. Is there a second, please?
Second.
There's a second. Please vote by raising your right hand. Okay. Any opposed? No opposition. That passes unanimously. Okay. Let's move to item number 4 that we deferred. Modify the speed limit on James Robinson Parkway between Church Street and Spring Street. Officer Bork, I think you had asked to speak concerning this matter, please.
We're not against the speed limit change per se. What we'd like to see is a prohibition of slow-moving vehicles that cannot reach speeds of 20 miles per hour on the roadway. And what that would eliminate is all the pedal taverns, pedicabs, horse carriages, and the like from using that roadway, which often only achieve a speed of about 7 miles an hour. And that's, if we could do that, then we would have no opposition to the change in the speed limit.
Thank you. Chip, do you have any comments concerning that, please?
Yeah, what we're referring to, and I agree with him on this, is when we work with the Transportation Licensing Commission to set up a low-speed vehicle map, right now the speed limit of James Robertson Parkway prohibits these vehicles from being on there. So if we lower the speed limit, that prohibition goes away and would allow the slow-moving vehicles to be on JRP. So either we can make a recommendation to approve it based on us working with TLC to still keep that roadway prohibited, or we can defer it, and then I can come back next month after it goes back before the Transportation Licensing Board. Either way, the point is well made, that we do not want those vehicles on James Robertson Parkway. I think it would be in our best interest to defer it at least 1 month, maybe an indefinite, till it can be heard before the TLC, the Transportation Licensing Commission. And then if they agree to prohibit vehicles on that road, because they regulate the slow-moving vehicles. And so if they agree to restrict them from that road, then it's a slam dunk for us.
Any commissioners have any comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment because I know that James Robertson Parkway downtown is marked as a bikeway. And so I would want to make, and I know that there's not a lot of other options in that area, and it's certainly not desirable to bike in a 40-mile-an-hour street. So I'd want to make sure that was included in any analysis. Because if we limit 20-mile-an-hour vehicles, what does that do for people who are probably riding bikes less than 20?
I think it applies to commercialized slow-moving vehicles, if they're for hire.
Okay.
So it would have to be under the purview of the TLC, and those are for hire vehicles. But point understood.
Yeah, just want to make sure that's considered.
Yes, Ms. Fabber.
Oh, I'd just like to make a motion to defer indefinitely.
Second. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The motion is, the item is deferred indefinitely. Okay. Ms. Kern, item number 5, the loading zone.
Yeah, I guess I was just, this might be able to be clarified, but with the loading zone on the if it's for TPAC and it's on the opposite side,
It is.
Is there a plan for getting people across the street, or is it close to the crosswalk? Or I was just kind of wanted to make sure it wasn't encouraging people to get loaded and unloaded on the opposite side.
It is close to the crosswalk. This is a location where people that are dropping off passengers to go to TPAC and also the War Memorial, this will give them a safe location to be dropped off at, because on the opposite side is a valet lane.
Okay, so this would be like for just like Lyft and Uber and whoever.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
correct.
So, and you feel like, well, is it close enough to the crosswalk that people will actually be using the crosswalk, or is it going to encourage people to?
It is
Be mid-block.
approximately 25 to 35 feet from the crosswalk.
Okay. Okay, well, that sounds like it should work out, but
Would you like to make a motion to approve the item, please?
sure, I'll move to approve that.
Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. The motion passes. Okay. Next item. Councilmember Sledge, we have 3 items that are all in your district. Would you like to kind of, I know they're 3 separate things. We have
Chairman?
item 1, yes.
Did we officially defer number 9?
I thought we had made a motion,
I don't know, I maybe zoned out for a sec.
excuse me. I got that we made a motion to approve and defer item 9.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So, excuse me. All right, new business. Item 1 is to appeal an all-way stop denial at the intersection of 10th Avenue South and Lawrence Avenue. Item 2 is appeal an all-way stop denial at the intersection of 10th Avenue South and Carruthers. And item 3 is an appeal an all-way stop denial at the intersection of 10th Avenue South and Halcyon Avenue, requested by Councilmember Sledge. Would you like to speak to these items, please?
Sure, absolutely, Chair,
Councilmember?
thank you. And I wanted to make 2 quick acknowledgments before I begin, if that's all right. One was, I know that there were several neighbors who were here on all 3 of these issues, and if it's all right, if they would raise their hands, just so you would know
Okay.
everyone who's in attendance. So
All
that's the bulk of the audience. I think the other thing I want to do before we started is I want to give a lot of credit and thanks to Mac Rutledge over at Public Works, because he's been extremely helpful throughout this process and in providing the data that I'm going to refer to when we talk about this. So I'm going to start with Lawrence and go in order, going Lawrence to Carruthers to Halcyon. As many of you know, if you haven't driven down 10th in the last few weeks, 10th Avenue South is being completely redesigned. 10th Avenue has been a collector street in the past, and with the opening of Waverly Belma Elementary, or the reopening in the last couple of years, as long as with the growth and development in 12 South, traffic has become an issue in 10th Avenue, not so much bottling up, but the speeds, the safety of the area, especially around the school. So with the help of Public Works and Metro Water, we have been going through a major project in 12 South, replacing a lot of water mains, and part of that has been all the way down 10th Avenue South, and we've grouped all of that work into one phase so we could redesign the street. So a big portion of that is narrowing by paint, by striping, narrowing, it is a 2-lane street, but narrowing the right-of-way and providing for bike lanes, many portions of which will be protected, and then providing for some on-street parking in certain areas, and then on others, moving that to the side streets. So right now where we are in that phase is the new asphalt was put on late last week. We have temporary striping down. There's still, as I think many neighbors will say, some confusion about some of that striping, about where people should park. But once the protected bike lanes get in and we have the permanent thermoplastic down, I think there will be a lot more clarity as to where we're parking. Part of the appeal on this street as well is we're actually doing some protected lanes through on-street parking. Throughout our conversations with the department, what came up time and again with residents was, is there a way to do traffic calming in part through 4-way stops? On this stretch, there is no 4-way stop. So you basically go from Ackland all the way to Kirkwood without stopping. And that was contributing to the high rates of speed. We have been talking about this, quite frankly, for the last couple of years, if not longer, at least the time that I've been in office. And the speed rates are higher than the posted speed. And what the residents have requested is, with this restriping process, could we also put in 4-way stops? Now, I will say that there was a pilot project done on Lawrence for a traffic circle that yielded what I would call incomplete data because of the construction that was going on. Literally, the construction was coming down to that intersection while the traffic circle was being piloted. So I think everybody conceded that the data wasn't really great either way. But on the crash data that you have on Lawrence, I would say the 3 that we're going to discuss, Lawrence is a no-brainer. There have been 12 incidents in the last 2 years at Lawrence. To give some context on Lawrence, if you are traveling south, Lawrence is the last turn you can make to get out of the school zone, which is contributing to the issues that we are seeing. You're seeing people who may not be familiar with the school zone. If they see that, and there is a signal, if they see that signal flashing, they're hanging a right or hanging a left to try to avoid that school zone. Lawrence also happens to be on the west side, the narrowest right-of-way in the neighborhood. So what you're seeing are incidents where people cannot see as they're pulling through. People are whipping around at speed and taking out cars, parked cars. We had a lot of issues with side view mirrors disappearing. And that is also the access point currently for drop-off and pickup for Waverly Belmont. So it has become a real mess of an intersection, and I think has contributed to the incidents. Many of the incident reports over the last couple of years at Lawrence indicate that many people were traveling east or westbound on Lawrence and pulled out into the right-of-way thinking they had a clearance and then got popped by somebody going north or southbound on 10th. So there has been a real issue on that intersection with people thinking they were clear or maybe rolling through the stop a little bit, but really thinking that they had the intersection and then they get thumped. So that's why I think a four-way stop could be beneficial at Lawrence, not only because of the incident rate, because the character of the incidents. If 10th Avenue traffic was forced to stop there, it seems that that type of incident would go down. Would you like me to continue on to Carruthers? Okay, great. So on Carruthers, Carruthers is the first intersection you then hit after Waverly Belmont. It is a high pedestrian area. There is a active congregation on the east side of Carruthers as well at 10th that has multiple events throughout the week. They use parking, street parking, and sometimes I believe they use the school parking as well. You're talking about a lot of pedestrian activity on that, not just school pedestrian activity. The incident report there is lower. It's 5 incidents in the same time period. But one of the characteristics of those incidents, both there and on Halcyon, is that incident reports show that there are multiple incidents where people thought there was a four-way stop. They literally thought they were coming up to a four-way stop, probably in part because it's marked with crosswalks and school crossing, and they testify when in the incident reports, that they thought there was a four-way stop. So really, the concern I have, and I think the residents have on this intersection and the next one, is not so much car-on-car incidents, which I believe is still an issue, but it's car versus pedestrian. I think y'all saw in the last week our pedestrian deaths are the highest that they've ever been. We are seeing a lot more walking in this neighborhood, and we are encouraging biking and walking in this neighborhood through the design and through the policies that we're putting forth. The school in particular has made a big effort to encourage parents and children from the neighborhood to walk to cut down on car traffic, and this intersection is where they're crossing. And then on Halcyon, Halcyon is a similar, it doesn't have the school, but also does have pedestrian activity. You have another active congregation that's at the Halcyon intersection. And I should know, I think everyone's familiar with the 12th Avenue South business corridor. When you're having residents who are walking to the businesses and shops that are in that corridor, Halcyon and Carruthers are two of the big draws. I mean, you've got some of your biggest, well, I would say pedestrian and neighborhood magnets at those intersections. So again, you've got a marked crosswalk, at least on one side, and we're going to be increasing those crosswalk markings and encouraging people to cross this road. And my fear is we're going to be encouraging them to step out in the traffic that's not going to be slowed down in any way. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. I know there's lots of folks here about this issue. Chip, could you provide some staff feedback about this, please?
Well, that presentation summarized pretty much the traffic relationships out there. The volumes don't quite meet justification for putting in always stops, but there's so many changes in the area going on that when he introduced by saying, you know, the road's just recently been paved and the data could be a little off because of all the construction, that's the presentation I'm going to speak to today. The data we have says that Halcyon, of the three, and I'm not trying to rank them, I'm just going to give you the data. Halcyon, and think back to when we talked about splits, when we talked about 40, 60 distributions on side streets and main lines. Halcyon has a 4% to 96% split, which usually disagrees with putting in an always stop. You want it evenly distributed. Carruthers has a 1783, now again, this is the data we've already admitted is kind of iffy, so take that with a grain of salt. And Lawrence is a 32 to 68. And then to recap the accidents, Lawrence had 12 in a 2-year period, and the other two had 5 each in a 2-year period. So you roll all that up back into the changes into the pedestrian and cycling, and the overall operation of 10th Avenue is changing with Waverly Belmont opening back up. That is the technical side of it. That is the councilman side of it. Jeff from our offices here, he's more familiar with the I don't want to say road diet, but the restriping of 10th and the desires of the restriping to go with more cycling and pedestrian friendly. Jeff, you want to come up and recap that project?
Mr. Hammond, please come forward, please.
Commissioners,
Please state your name for the record.
my name is Jeff Hammond. I'm with Metro Public Works Division of Transportation, and we've been working with this neighborhood who is extremely involved and has been extremely helpful as we have worked through the development of what we believe will be a very different 10th Avenue than exists today and has existed previous to now, and working with Councilman Sledge as well in that. This started for us with a letter from the Neighborhood Association back in April of this year. We had already been working some with a new bikeway project, but in that letter they outlined about 8 different requests, all of them having to do with speed issues as well as different types of users, bicyclists and pedestrians in particular. The first 6 we were directly related to the bicycle project and bicycle lane project, and are being implemented now, or in the process of finishing that project up. The other 2 are the ones that we are talking about today. Those were just different ways to slow traffic, and they also requested that we look at a slower speed limit for the roadway itself. We continue to look at all of those things. As was mentioned, as part of the project, we have attempted a traffic circle. We began thinking about that as a permanent part of the bikeway project. We put it out there. We saw some things we did not like about that, not just from a traffic delay or volume standpoint, but actually people turning the wrong way around traffic islands. So there were some real reasons why we don't think that was a good fit for that particular street. And really what we are asking for at this point is to continue to let us finish this project, evaluate how our investment in 10th Avenue is working for all users, and continue to work with the neighborhood as we've done for the past number of months in determining what the future should be from a traffic control perspective. Should we look at other traffic circles? Should we modify that? Should we look at all-way stops and so forth? And so in short, our stance on it is we believe we are designing a very much improved and different 10th Avenue, and would like the chance to see how that operates before we continue to make change upon change for the street.
Thank you. All right. I know there's lots of people who showed up today, and I'm trying to see if y'all decided if everybody wants to speak, or if we could try to keep it to a handful of people to speak on this issue. I don't want to inhibit anyone's rights since you took the time to show up, but I would like to hear from the audience since folks came. So I think it's only fair. So is there a kind of a lead spokesperson for the neighbors? Yes. Yes.
While we're waiting at question, are we going to vote for these one at a time? Or
Yes,
as a group?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll vote for them one at a time. Okay. All right. I guess I should ask, is there anyone here opposed to a stop sign on 10th Avenue? Anyone dare to oppose a stop sign? Okay. All right. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Erin Block. I live at 908 Halcyon Avenue, and those are my 2 kids. Raise your hands, guys. Back there, Miles and Lucille.
Well, thanks for bringing your children.
Yeah.
I'm a Boy Scout leader. We always try to encourage our boys to be civically involved, and it's nice to bring children to these
Yeah.
meetings so they can learn. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate my employer, Vanderbilt University, for letting me also be here at this time. So I actually was a member of the PTO at Waverly Belmont as well, so just have cycled off this year and helped to start the walk bike program there. And so we do try and encourage walking and biking in our neighborhood. And living at the corner, well, we live just down from the corner of 10th and Halcyon. I regularly have to, as I bike my kids home from school, what I have to do is walk out into the middle of the street on my bike and stand there like this, hoping that nobody hits me, while I then watch my kids bike their bikes across that street with people that are, number one, going way too fast, number two, regularly think that they can go around a car that is stopped. In fact, my son was almost hit recently in that type of scenario, and see neighbors go through the same thing every day. I'm most concerned about my own children, obviously, but I'm also concerned about the other children and families that I see trying to cross this street regularly. I understand that there are issues with traffic in the area. I understand there are issues with people who are trying to make it home in time and whatever people are trying to do, and that Nashville's growing, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a street and a neighborhood that we've tried to make pedestrian friendly, where we are trying to have a school that has kids regularly walking and biking, and it frankly does not feel safe. And so I understand and appreciate the position of someone who has to look at issues across the city. Been a bureaucrat myself, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But I do think, I can understand wanting to take a look at this over time, but I would very much advocate for stop signs along this road or some way of letting us all cross 10th Avenue, which is a large street, now a large cut through, safely. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, and please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Carrie Conley, and I live at 2405 10th Avenue South. I'm also Vice President of the 12 South Neighborhood Association. I moved to 12 South in 2005. In that time period of me living on 10th, I've had a car in my home take 12 feet out of my foundation, and I've had 3 cars totaled in front of my house. I also, though, the minute that school came in place, convenience is not a factor for me. It's about the safety of these kids. I don't find any reason to hold off and wait and see how this happens if it means a kid's life is at stake. You can't get across 10th. I mean, you can't. I mean, literally, I have stood out there like Aaron has just to try and get across myself. We have worked with Public Works, and we had lots of community meetings. We truly did not feel like the feedback was taken, so it is very concerning for us going forward that nothing's going to happen as far as traffic calming on 10th. I know they say it's a collector street, but I think the minute you put a elementary school that hosts 600 children, we are not a collector street. We are a residential neighborhood with a Metro Public School. And to me, I think there's absolutely nothing that anybody should think about than the safety of these children. And if it means people stopping for these kids to get across safely, I think that should be a priority. And people are using it as a cut through from 12th and 10th, and it does actually bottle up at Kirkwood, but I do feel if there were more stops, it would actually stop that from happening. And it is a residential neighborhood, like I said. It's not a commercial district. We host a school. And even with the new striping, people are still flying. I mean, I almost got T-boned at Carruthers and 10th just last week from somebody rolling, like not stopping at, well, no, actually I was stopped and they were not seeing me. And I was like, this isn't safe. I know Chris got passed in front of the school during school hours because he was actually going the speed limit. So to me, even narrowing the streets, and even during this construction period where there are potholes and people are still flying, they're not stopping. So to me, the stop signs, even if it is a temporary thing for a long term, it needs to happen now. I don't think it's worth waiting for a life to be lost.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right.
Chip,
Okay.
I have one question, Chip, and that is, on the Carruthers, how backed up will traffic get if you have a 4-way stop right there, and a patrol, and a school zone?
And that might be the objective. It depends on what side of the fence you're on. You know, a little congestion might be the objective to slow people down. Right now, again, I keep going back to the data. During this construction may be off by a few percentages, but right now we gathered 1,100 vehicles on the side street at Carruthers, on Carruthers itself, and 6,250 on 10th. So congestion, unless everybody comes at once, which they kind of do at school
I
time.
think I'm asking, the coming out of Waverly Belmont, how far is that? Corbin, can you go get an aerial view coming out of Waverly Belmont and come back some? I mean, I know the area. I'm born and raised there since 1973, so I've been there longer than probably everyone in the room. So, yeah, I'm trying to see, coming out as school, Councilman, I mean.
Well, what I was going to say, Commissioner and Chair, is we are actually in the process of changing that exit and entry point to the school. Right now, they're using 11th a lot, and yeah, you'll get some traffic. We're working on reconfiguring that right now, and it's not just pie in the sky. I think it's fairly imminent.
Okay.
So I think that could impact the.
So they are going to start using that coming off of Lawrence to 11th and 11th.
Well, that's what they currently do. I think what we're trying to do, and fingers crossed, what I think we're about to have funding for, is to centralize that on the empty lot that's next to the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my only concern.
I think there was one more person that wanted to speak.
I think there were a few more, if that's
A
okay.
few
Chair.
more,
Yeah.
okay. I want people to speak because they came, but try to provide some new information as well. Okay.
Sure. My
And
name
state your name for the record.
is Joseph Dunnigan. I live at 2306 10th Avenue South. That's directly across from the school. And I routinely walk in that crosswalk there at, I guess, Carruthers. I've almost been hit by a car 3 times. Now, I've lived there 2.5 years. The reason I've almost been hit is because people are driving too fast. But that's not my largest point to make today. You talked a bit about traffic accidents at the 3 specific areas where stop signs are currently proposed. I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter that her car was totaled on 10th Avenue 2 months ago at Montrose, where a car hit her so hard that he T-boned her car and then went in across 10th Avenue into Montrose and hit another car head on, and no one was hurt in the accident. But the reason I tell that story is simply to say I really challenge the number of accidents, because I've personally seen 5 accidents. I work from home a lot, and I work outside a lot, and I hear the accidents. So I don't believe all of the numbers of the accidents in this area are really represented in the study that I've heard. So I just wanted to point that out to the panel.
Thank you. And I think, was there Pete Horton? I think you wanted to. How are you?
Ken Winter, a founding board member of the Neighborhood Association. One clarification in regard to Mr. Knopf's willingness, I think, to consider what's coming ahead of this. We think that the church, the historic 1900 church, catty-cornered across from the school, from the Waverly Belmont School, is going to be redeveloped for multifamily. And that we have no multifamily buildings, to my knowledge. So it's just a clarification, and that's enough. Thank you.
And there was, one more person wanted to speak, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Merritt. I'm at 2306 9th Avenue South. I've lived there on that side of 10th Avenue for about 5 years, and I've faced, all the same issues that other people have crossing 10th. I wanted to point out, we requested the survey data that was taken and that I guess has been provided to you about traffic on the intersection. And I just wanted to point out that the survey from Collier was taken on Halloween on October 31st. And Halcyon was closed for traffic in the evening. From 5 to 9, there was a lot of trick-or-treating, and it was a great block party for everybody who was there. But looking at some of the traffic number, I just wanted to point that out as to the reason that there's very minimal traffic at the intersection in the evening that night. But it was a great event and the type of reason why we need some slower traffic on 10th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. One more.
Hello, my name is Jesse Bloker. I live 1509 Ferguson Avenue, which is not very close to this, but my kids go to Waverly Belmont. and I'm also a founding member of the PTO Waverly Belmont. You asked for new information, so the new information I have is that I'm also a professor of finance at Vanderbilt, so I come to this from an economic standpoint. Okay, I believe the counter proposal on the table is that we should wait, that we should maybe delay this and see what happens. And from my perspective, the incremental cost of adding in some four-way stops is relatively minimal. And as you know, in the neighborhood, I think we are happy to continue to study the issue. I guess our proposal is that we would go ahead and put in the four-way stops, and then we can continue studying things with readily acknowledging that the cost of putting them in, and then if perhaps it turns out that that's a bad idea, taking them out is actually pretty minimal. I don't think that that's anything that should stop us, and I feel that we can go forward with the proposal with relatively low cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, at this point in time, we'll close the public hearing and allow commissioners to ask questions, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if these four-way stops are put up, this is going to be something new. Will there be flashing lights? I mean, will people that aren't used to them, are they going to be running them, or are they going to have warning, here comes a four-way stop? Something new.
If this passes, we would probably put up the white stop bars on the pavement itself, the stop signs themselves on regular galvanized posts, and we'd put up stop ahead signs. But that's just pretty much the typical installation. Because stop sign sight distance shouldn't be an issue, and I get that it's new and not expected, but we try to just flag them with stop ahead signs.
Chip, what is the speed limit on 10th Avenue now?
30 miles per hour. That's what, yeah. I didn't say that's what people do.
That is the posted speed limit. Okay.
Is this going to putting up this many four-way stops? This could increase the speed limit of the way people drive, trying to get from one stop sign 2 blocks to another one, 2 blocks to another one.
Thank you.
I see a problem there.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
If we could, audience member, please let's be quiet so we can have our discussion, please. Okay.
Of course, one gentleman said he had seen several accidents there, but for his police reports, you've only seen 5 in 2 years. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that statement's not too far from what we hear, though. Sometimes there's near misses, or we just didn't report it. We worked it out ourselves. We've all seen that, but yeah, 5, and 12.
All right.
Councilman, I understand what you're trying to do, but my suggestion would be, let's try putting one at Lawrence for a while, then see how that's going to work. Then come back later if you want to try these others, if you want to do that. But I think putting 3 of these all at one time, you could be making a bad thing worse.
Okay. All right. Any other commissioners with comments?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple comments and questions. Because to me, it kind of seems there are 2 issues. And so the first one is the speed, and hopefully the traffic calming will help with that when you get the bollards in and when the painting is complete. But then the second concern seems to be crossing the street. And so I guess I'm curious, in all the discussions, if the traffic circles aren't working, are there any plans for any, I guess, ways to help people cross the street in kind of the works with what Public Works has been working on? I don't know if Jeff answers, or Colby, if you know the answer, whoever's, yeah.
Yeah, I will speak to that. As part of the design, and in fact, this goes back to some initial requests from the neighborhood. They 2 things that speak to that come to my mind. 3 things actually. One was bulb outs. Those will be put in as part of this project. That's where we bring basically the safe area of a pedestrian closer together, so that the crossing distance of 10th will be shorter. We have narrower lanes, so they'll be shorter yet. The lanes are going to 10-foot lanes, and so again, we're narrowing that distance and limiting that exposure. And then the third one was they requested a number of full crosswalks on all legs of the intersection, and those are being implemented as well.
I have a question. Were there plans to put kind of what I call rumble strips down as well on this street like you've done at, I think it's 12th and near Ackland, if I recall?
That had been discussed, and that came up as part of our meetings, and some of the neighbors mentioned that. We currently don't have plans to do that. That is something, again, another option that we would be happy to continue to work with the neighborhood as part of the project, after it goes in, so we can really nail down where do we need those, do we need those, do we have support for those. In a residential area, we try to be more careful about using those. We've used some of those for Councilman Sledge over by the park, and it works really well. Here, we have more people around, so we would just consider those kind of things. But certainly, that's the type of option we'd like to continue to consider.
I have one more question. What's the time frame for Public Works to implement the full street painting project, whatever we want to call it?
Yes, sir. Currently, it has just been paved. The final surface is down. The paint on the street, which is confusing, no question about it, it's not done yet. That's temporary paint. So first week of December is the current time frame for coming back in with the full thermo and begin fleshing that out. I would say this too, what's there is not all that's going to be there. There's more striping to do. We put just enough back in a temporary way to keep traffic flowing. But first week in December is the plan. Of course, we're in the time of year where weather will impact that. I would definitely say by the first of the year, we should have everything in and it's operating as it's going to.
With the streets coming in small, is there a plan to decrease the speed limit? You'll keep it at 30 with 10 feet?
For now, we're keeping it 30. One of the considerations about a slower speed limit, we get requests all the time to lower speed limits, especially in neighborhoods like this one, as you all are probably aware. We have some pilot projects going in 3 areas of Davidson County. We are continuing to monitor those and collect data so that we can figure out, will this work? Is it a good thing to do? Or did it have reverse consequences, something we may not have foreseen? So we're trying to hold off on changing those until we get the results of those data back.
Chip, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
It seems like Lawrence is, of course, a no-brainer, but then when you go down here to Carruthers, the percentage is different from Halcorn. Can you explain the difference in those two? Is there more traffic there or what?
Yeah, the mainline traffic, I keep going back to our data that we're using was, I don't want to say hocus pocus, but it was kind of put together with all these other construction projects going on and Halloween and all this stuff. It does throw it off. But the percentage for Carruthers being 17% Carruthers, 83% Tent, the 83% or the 6,200 on the bottom, the divisible number, remains the same. The number we use for Tent is the same throughout. It's just your side street volumes are lower or higher on one of these 3.
Okay, so it seems like that Halcorn is a lot lower than the other ones.
And that was an excellent point on Halloween night. You combine the side streets, and one of the side streets are both being closed for temporary length of time, through that number way very low probably.
Okay, wouldn't it be, what I'm looking at here, it seems like the closer you get to Waverly Belmont, the more traffic there is on those side streets, am I correct?
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's because of parents dropping their kids off and coming out those roads.
It's like water, it just kind of flows where it leaves resistance.
Right.
Keep in mind, too, on the volumes, this has been under construction for a while. It's been very dusty, very uncomfortable to travel on. I think it affects volumes on all legs right now, the way traffic works. When there's construction, it may divert to some other street.
Yeah, but anytime you got a school close by, the first few blocks are going to be the ones where people are going to travel the most. That's what I find at any school that's in a neighborhood.
And Chair.
Ms. Woods and then Mr. Brown. Ms. Woods and then Ms. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Which street is the closest to the school again? Carruthers is the closest to Waverly Belmont School?
It's right there.
Okay, Waverly and Lawrence, okay. Well, the one thing I hear that really concerns me is children's safety, pedestrian safety. That's terrifying, it's just, nothing's worth anything with that kind of risk.
The pickup plan and the drop-off plan for Waverly Belmont. Where
Could you turn your mic on, please, officer?
What's the pickup and drop-off plan? Pickup and drop-off plan for Waverly Belmont?
Sure. Currently 11th Avenue South, which is that leg you see right there by the school. That's where you're seeing folks come from Lawrence down 11th, which right now is getting a sidewalk, so you can imagine the mess that it is right now. That's where the pickup occurs and drop-off occurs, so they come around and come out. That field you see right there, the hope is, again, fingers crossed in what we're about to see in the council, that the funding is going to be there to basically facilitate a design that allows for an entry and exit point. I couldn't tell you exactly what that is, but I think the hope was that it's really to avoid, quite frankly, the 11th issue that's occurring where we've got folks who are bottling up on what's a narrow right-of-way.
Are they coming both directions?
No, they're entering from Lawrence to 11th and exiting. And I'm going to allow anybody to correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I live right across the street, and he's talking about the main way the buses come through. What I observe every morning, because I walk up to Frothy Monkey up in the 12th South area, is people are short stopping on both sides of the school. So you can go back a few blocks from directly across from where the school is, and there's cars parked all on the side streets throughout the area where people are dropping off their kids instead of using that egress.
Yeah, because it's become, quite frankly, such an issue.
People would bike and walk to school if they knew that their kid could get across the street safely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like there's several things going on. There's the plan for the street remarkings, and then eventually, we're not quite sure the time frame yet.
On the school?
On the school.
It would most likely be the next school.
Yeah, okay.
We'll take these one by one.
All right, so, yes. All right, Mr. Brown would like to ask one more question, please.
Chip, by having 3 stop signs, is this going to cause the traffic to take these residential streets to bypass them?
It very well could. People are going to take the path of least resistance. Now, sometimes cutting through a neighborhood isn't the least resistant, but that could be some of this traffic already coming from 12th. So, yeah.
We just trying to solve your problem without throwing it somewhere.
No, Commissioner, I totally appreciate that. I do just want to point out, I think you've heard this, and one thing that I think everybody has inadvertently neglected is there is a commercial space right next to the school that attracts a lot of traffic and pedestrian traffic, again, crossing back and forth, a coffee shop there and a yoga studio and some other things. I do think the concern when we talk about Carruthers and Halcyon is much more car versus pedestrian, and I think that's the consideration I'm asking you to make today.
Thank you very much. I think would anyone like to make a motion concerning item 1?
I'd like to move to approve item number 1.
Second.
And item 1 is an all-way stop at 10th Avenue and Lawrence Avenue. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Is there a motion concerning item 2, an all-way stop?
Motion for approval.
Second.
All right, there is a motion to approve a 4-way stop at 10th Avenue South and Carruthers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one opposed. Okay, please. All right, that motion passes. Item 3.
I want to make a motion to defer this indefinite. Let's see how these two do. So
All right, on item 3, you would like to, is there a motion on item 3 on all-way stop at 10th Avenue and Halcyon? You'd like to make a motion to defer that indefinitely? Okay. We have a first. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a first and a second. On this, I'm going to ask for a hand vote. All in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. We have 3 votes. Okay, 4. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a tie. I guess I'm going to cast a deciding vote on this one. Okay. All right. Chip, I have a quick question to ask before I vote. I think procedurally, these stop signs are approved by the commission, and then to remove them, or they also have to come back before us?
Yes, sir, they would appear before this board.
Okay, because the question could be, maybe things improve and we want to take it out. So, all right. On this motion, I'm going to vote to approve the stop sign. Okay. All right, so we...
I can't say no to my friends.
All right.
So we need another vote?
So we need, my is not to defer. I vote not to defer indefinitely this stop sign. That was the motion on the table. So is there a motion to approve an all-way stop?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve an all-way stop. We'll do another show of hands. All in favor to approve the all-way stop?
Second.
We need a second. Thank you.
Sure, I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All right, so all in favor to approve an all-way stop at 10th and Halcyon, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? We have 4. I will vote to approve an all-way stop. Okay. So,
let me ask this before we move forward with Public Works. So, I mean, this is going to be a nightmare now trying to put these in and get your piece done, too.
Okay.
So, because you all will come first, right?
Okay, wait just a second.
My question is, your plan is first, right?
It is.
Yeah.
We will
so
come
we're
first.
still on yours till we even get to this.
Right, we will come
Right.
first, but we will make adjustments to our crosswalks, move them back, make preparations to add the stop bars and so forth.
So what time are we looking at next year?
Well, we will again, we won't change our schedule for that. We'll still be first week of December.
For your plans?
Correct.
All right. So,
Chip, what does that put to the stop signs?
Well, considering the
year.
time of year it is and the 5-day delay the charter requires, it probably works out perfect. It really does. By the time we get it in the pipeline to get the signs to the sign shop and blah, 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 and Thanksgiving comes and goes, it'll be the last week of November, first week of December anyway. So it works pretty good.
all right. I would like, for the record, that, after the streets, I'm going to call it streetscape, street painting gets put in and the stop signs are in, that, we continue to study this issue to see, are there any further improvements? Because sometimes stop signs cannot be the most effective traffic calming tool. There's other traffic calming tools that will work. But I think in the meantime, this is an improvement. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Council members, thank you very much. All right. We have one last item on our agenda, which is the chair and the vice chair elections. Oh, I'm sorry. I got so bogged down. Thank you. I appreciate everyone keeping me straight. We have item 4, discussion to install a permanent parklet on the west side of 2nd Avenue North at 129 2nd Avenue North, requested by the Cumberland River Compact, who I know is going to be here at the meeting, and then I know there's some other people who'd like to speak. Yes. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
My name is Mikhail Houghton. I'm Executive Director of the Cumberland River Compact. And I have to say you have a lot more audience participation here than at the Stormwater Management Committee meetings that I'm used to going to. So, in partnership with the Nashville Civic Design Center, we are seeking approval to convert 2 parking spaces along 2nd Avenue into a parklet that provides an amenity for pedestrian traffic as well as stormwater treatment. I'd like to emphasize that the rendering we have, and you may have received a copy of the rendering, is at a conceptual stage. We've had initial meetings with stakeholders, including Public Works, Metro Water, the Downtown Partnership, the Police Department, and 2nd Avenue merchants. If this commission agrees to allocate the 2 parking spaces to this project, we will work with stakeholders to finalize the conceptual and technical designs Then we will seek a permit from Public Works for the designed parklet. Before our engineers and designers, and I want to publicly express our gratitude for them. This has turned into a bigger project than we anticipated. But before our engineers and designers and our organizations invest much more time into this project, we'd like to know that the site is acceptable to this commission. This project grew out of two initiatives. One is the Nashville Civic Design Center's Parking Day. Every day for one day, this site and many others are converted into parklets to great success. During the Nashville Civic Design Center's work with the downtown merchants, they have heard a desire to direct outdoor dining and seating to 2nd Avenue. This project could do that. The second initiative this project lines up with is DPAVE. The Cumberland River Compact, with support from the Frist Foundation, launched a project called DPAVE that works with volunteers to replace unnecessary asphalt with pervious surfaces. In so doing, we improve water quality and the health of our rivers and streams. Depaved surfaces function as rain gardens, capturing the first flush of dirty rainwater and cleaning it as it percolates into the soil. This project is especially critical in areas of the city experiencing sewage overflows into the Cumberland River. The more rainwater we can keep out of the downtown storm drains, the less sewage overflows into the Cumberland River. As you know, Nashville is spending $1.5 billion to address the aging infrastructure that causes this type of water pollution. This project seeks to make permanent the temporary installation of Parking Day and supplement it with stormwater treatment. The conceptual drawings illustrate some of the potential and beautiful ways we can layer functions in this small space. This morning, we met with Sergeant John Bork of Metro Police Department. It was an excellent meeting, and we appreciate his reservations about the project. Already, our team is thinking of ways to adjust the design based on his concerns. The Cumberland River Compact and the Nashville Civic Design Center have strong track records of working collaboratively with the city and the private sector. With your approval of this site, we will move forward with more stakeholder involvement to achieve a design and eventually a public space that is successful and sustainable. We believe this project makes manifest goals set in a number of Nashville's planning documents, including DPAVE as a flagship project of Mayor Berry's Livable Nashville Committee and the 2011 Open Space Plan, calling for a pocket park along this block of 2nd Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have about the project.
Okay, thank you very much. Was any other folks with you wanted to speak, or just want to make sure?
They might answer the technical questions.
Okay, that'll be great. All right. Officer Bork, would you like to step forward and speak, please? And please state your name for the record.
Sergeant John Bork, Metro Police. I did meet with this group this morning to discuss some concerns that we had at the police department about the location of the parklet. First, as a safety concern, there's a lot of traffic on 2nd Avenue. A lot of it is large. A lot of bus traffic, probably more bus traffic than most streets see. Side-by-side bus traffic. If a bus hit the parklet with people in it, it would be a tragedy. You're putting people very close. Right now, you have a parking lane, you have a lot of parked cars, you have a buffer between pedestrians and the traffic that is moving. If you put this, you have pedestrians right on the traffic lane. So that was one of our concerns. It is a high DUI area. When I worked the midnight shift there, that was pretty much where we stopped all the DUIs that came the wrong way from Commerce toward Broadway. Most of the drivers that made the wrong way, a few were from out of town, most of them were intoxicated. So that is a concern of ours as well. Vagrancy is an often complaint from the residents and the business owners in that area. We cannot move, once you establish a park, we cannot move the people off of it. We can move people down a sidewalk that are obstructing the sidewalk. We can move people out of the street. We can move people that are trespassing on private property. When you say it's a park, they get to stay there all day long and talk to whoever they want, or, bother these people's customers. And so I would say you know, I'm not trying to stop anything. I just want everybody to be aware of the issues that could arise from this, that these things need to be brought to the attention of the merchants, that we won't be in there moving people on that they don't like that are occupying this space. So it's not just going to be people eating ice cream in the space. It could be for lack of a better term, what they call the train people, who arrive on the freight trains in large numbers with dogs and backpacks, and they take over that space. We can't move them off of that space. We often move them off of the sidewalks because we can't let them block the sidewalks. We need that for walking. So that could happen. On a special event side, talking it over, I'm not sure that it moves a lot. Christmas parade moved to First Avenue this year. It would affect the Christmas parade should it move back to Second Avenue. Battle of the Bands, that was the staging area for the ACC last year. It's not always a staging area for Battle of the Bands, but it could be. If it's permanent, it's not something we can move to host a special event on Second Avenue. And we do block a lot of special events from happening on Second Avenue just because of the residential population on it, because people want to be really loud and some people want to sleep. So those are our concerns about the parklet and the location.
Thank you very much, Officer. Is there anyone in the audience who is here to speak to this matter? Just checking. Okay. Okay, and please come forward then, state your name for the record.
My name is Mary Beth Ackert. I work on sustainability in the mayor's office, and just want to echo Mikhail's comments that this was sort of a signature project that the mayor's committee on environmental sustainability recommended, both for people-friendly streets and public spaces, as well as stormwater quality issues. So just would echo her comments about continuing to work with stakeholders, be it the police department, merchants, to make sure we work through all the project concerns and get a good project before it moves forward.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, I think commissioners probably have questions for the staff and the presenters. We'll start with you, Ms. Kern.
Sure. I guess I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about the fact that you've already demonstrated a project here and whether or not that worked, and whether or not there were any concerns with traffic, because I know traffic typically is extremely slow on Second Avenue, so kind of just how that worked with the years that you've done this before.
My name is Ron Yearwood. I work at the Nashville Civic Design Center, and we are neighbors across the street to this particular site. We started Parking Day 6 years ago with about 10 spaces around downtown, and we've grown to about 90. Each year we repeat these along Second Avenue. This year was pretty much full of parking spaces. That also only happens one day a year. So last year, we decided to test out doing a longer installation in this particular location. Mike's Ice Cream used to be on Broadway, as you know, and has recently moved to Second Avenue, which was also came out of workshops that we had with the merchants of Broadway and Second Avenue when we were working with Gell Studio out of New York. Sorry, there's a lot of meetings that happened last year. And that focus was really Broadway and First Avenue, and out of those workshops, some of the recommendations were that the seating didn't necessarily need to be on Broadway, but that Second Avenue was more appropriate for outdoor dining, and testing out these parklet ideas. So last October, we started our first 2-week installation, or maybe it's a week and a half, over 2 weekends and during the week, with a temporary parklet, basically made out of plastic heavy-duty pallets to be flush with the sidewalk, movable seating, because we wanted the option to be flexible and have Mike's or the Civic Design Center take out the seating if it was needed to throughout the night or the day. I don't know if we sent out the images to everyone, but there are images of both night and day. This also partnered with the district to test out some lighting in between the sidewalk and the parklet itself, so it kind of felt there was an evening atmosphere. And part of that longer-term test was to test out the vagrancy issue that Sergeant Bork mentioned, to make sure that this was a good location, that it would have positive use. And we didn't actually find that there was that problem. What we do want to do is to test it out again for a longer time, maybe a month, to make sure that these concerns are addressed and to be able to inform if there was a permanent installation in this location, What tweaks would we have to make? You know, does it make sense to have permanent seating? Does it need to stay flexible? Those types of things. And what days of the week are bad and good. With events, you know, this is still parking all the time. So even during the evenings, there are usually cars parked in these locations. So, and it's a pretty wide street. Anyway.
So, Mr. Yearwood,
Yeah.
you're asking for, it's another pilot then, or longer pilot than what you've been doing in the past?
As part
then?
of our neighborhood our engagement with the neighbors, we would do another pilot before
It
installing
gets
a
approved.
permanent.
So really, it's just about
It's
making
about
this
finding
space
this space,
and
yeah.
dedicating the idea
Correct.
to, okay.
Correct.
All right.
So let
Go
me,
It's a-
go ahead.
Yeah,
Please. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
We're requesting your approval to allot these 2 parking spaces to a park, so that if the trial run were successful, then we could move to a more design stage and get that permitted through Public Works.
Okay. Question.
I have a question.
Okay, yes, Ms. Williams, go ahead.
So, in addressing Sergeant Bork's concern about this being called a park and their ability to police that area, is there another name or designation for this so that it would allow them to be able to police the space?
Let me interrupt for a second. You got to remember what the jurisdiction of this board is, and it is to supervise the operation of the on-street conditions. It doesn't matter what they're proposing as far as furniture or vagrants being on that, and that's not on you guys. What we're here to talk about today is the deletion from the schedule of a police parking zone and a metered parking spot. Now, what Public Works or codes or the police department or Civic Design Center does with that goes before a lot of other boards before it gets approved. But
Would
you're
it be
not necessarily
possible, excuse me,
yeah, you're not necessarily approving the parklet itself or the use of that spot once it's gone. What you're looking at today is getting rid of what is now police parking in 1 metered spot.
would we could designate another space as police parking, though?
Yes.
I'm confused. Okay, go ahead.
I'm confused. So, but we do concentrate on pedestrian safety, right?
Correct.
And something was, the policeman did say something about people not being safe that were walking, sitting, whatever.
I agree with you, but if Public Works or a third party wanted to come in and expand the sidewalk, and there'd be pedestrians hanging out there, it really wouldn't come before this board. I mean, all kinds of construction jobs could change the layout of the sidewalk and the use of it.
One other thing, just for my information, is this all one way at night? Are these parking places gone at night? Or are they there 24/7?
24/7.
Okay.
Either parking or loading zone.
Okay.
Councilmember Hager, and then Ms. Williams.
My concern, of course, I have an office on 2nd Avenue. We own it 219. And every time I turn around, we keep taking spaces away. The 21C Museum Hotel, which is next door to me, they've taken all those parking spaces up for them to unload people there. And we don't have anywhere for a lot of times our clients coming in to park, or they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to park, you know, in those parking lots over there. So my concern is we keep getting rid of parking spaces and loading zones, all these businesses. Now, I don't know if anybody's talked to the Business Coalition down there about this yet. Has that been done yet or not?
Actually, I didn't want to interrupt you, but to jump in, if you have a personal stake, you should probably recuse yourself from the vote. Since,
Well, I will. That's
okay.
fine. But I'm telling you from my experience in owning property down there, what's happening. So I'm just letting you know that.
All right, Ms. Williams.
I worked with the Civic Design Center on setting up this area in front of Mike's Ice Cream last year, and it was extremely well received. It's my understanding from having talked to the people at Mike's Ice Cream that they had very good business. They didn't really have any problems with anything. They set up the furniture, removed the furniture. It was indeed a temporary thing, and I'm in support seeing this happen, because there are improvements that we've been working on Second Avenue with lighting. We had a change. We're currently working to relight the trees down there, but we had another addition to that added with metering the trees, and so we've had to back up and regroup, but we're in the process of overcoming that now. So there are improvements that go along before anything would be made permanent with this. And of course, I get Chip's thing about what our responsibility is to approve the spaces, but it all is in a big picture thing, that we have improvements that need to go with the sidewalk there, because there are areas of that sidewalk that are treacherous for people to traverse because the bricks are loose and people fall. And so I would, before there's a lot of money spent on this, would love to see what the total thing would be from the city, how the design would be impacted with stormwater, how it would be done with other bulb outs perhaps on Second Avenue and other spaces like that, and how pedestrian safety would be paramount in this, and what the traffic pattern would look like with dual buses coming down there. Perhaps there could be something so that it's limited, so that you have only one lane that's allocated to bus traffic, so that you don't have that issue.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Where's the police parking going?
I'm sorry?
Where's the police parking being relocated to?
We will relocate that space one space down from where it currently is.
At the fire hydrant?
No, it goes the opposite direction, going up to north. We will go up past where that white truck is at and the SUV. That will be where the police parking will be at.
Just to be clear, Chip, what we're actually approving is, in a sense, removing 2 spaces from the roll.
We're
in
removing
essence.
1 parking meter space and relocating the police parking space.
Okay. That's actually what the item is to approve. Is that correct?
That's what we're proposing.
Okay. All right, Ms. Babber, you had a...
Well, I'm excited about this. I think this looks really interesting, and they've addressed a lot of the concerns about having, railing along the street there to protect the pedestrians. Sounds like maintenance and those items. So with that, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Okay. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3.
I had another question.
Okay, well...
Go ahead and ask your question.
I'm confused about the motion. It says install a permanent park, but then I heard you say something about this is a trial for a while, so I'm confused about what the vote is on. Is it permanent? Is this a trial?
In the past, they've gotten what we call a temporary permit to install a parklet. And you've seen it on Broadway before for the one-dayers, and this may have been one-day run or on Second before.
We've done both 1 day and
Multiple days.
2-week installations.
But that goes through a temporary permitting system. Now, at this point, they're wanting to make it more permanent, which means getting a permanent permit. And to get a permanent permit, they need to close those spots. Is that making more sense now?
Okay, so this is not a trial. This is
Correct.
And I think once it passes to them, they have control, and they, if they want to do trials to figure out their design, that would be up to them. Is that correct?
And other agencies.
Yes.
It just wouldn't be up to us. I mean, I'm sure if they wanted to bring it back before the Traffic Commission for pedestrian concerns, they could, or maybe we would suggest it. But at that point, that piece of right-of-way can go through the permitting system to do whatever they want, whether it be street furniture or a kiosk or a bus depot or whatever else you see on sidewalks. What we're talking about today is to abort the use of it as it sits today.
But this is also something I heard the police have a lot of concerns about. Okay. Okay. Thank you. How many parking spaces are there in that block between Broadway and Commerce? Not very many.
I'm guessing on the east side between Broad and Commerce currently, we have 2 parking spaces. We have a passenger loading zone. on the opposite stride where this is being proposed at. We have a horse-drawn carriage location, we have a loading zone, we have police parking, and approximately 5 or 6 metered spaces.
And I will say, when we did the temporary installations, we did work with the police that usually patrol Second Avenue, and they seemed to be just fine with it. They suggested that we should keep it in a little longer because they also use it for that spot. But I think that was Sergeant Bearden, I believe, and there may have been one other. I can try to get more confirmation from that, but we do try to make sure everybody is in the know and work with them on these issues.
Let me try to ease the burden on the commission today. What are the chances? I'm just throwing something out. What are the chances of you guys getting another temporary, doing something out there, and letting the commission see what you're talking about?
So our impetus for the request of the 2 spaces today is because our engineers and our organizations are investing a lot of money in this project. And if we invest this money in this project, we would like to know that you all are open to giving up these 2 parking spaces. So we're in a position of, if you all aren't going to approve these 2 spaces, we don't want to continue to invest our organization's resources.
Excellent point.
Understand. All right. So we have a motion to approve, and there's been a first or second. Let's now cast our vote. Please raise your right hand on the motion if you're for it. 1, 2, 3. All right. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 opposed and 3 for, so the motion fails.
We may massage it a little bit and bring it back before the commission next month, or 2. Ron, we'll work with you.
Thank you for your presentation and your time. Grateful. Okay. All right, so we have one more item on the agenda, the annual elections for the chair and vice chair. Okay.
She's my dear friend.
All right. Is there a motion concerning chair and vice chair positions?
I'd like to make a motion that John Green serve as chair and Phil Brown serve once again as vice chair.
So we have that motion, and there's a second. Okay. We'll go for a vote on this. Is there a vote? Please raise your right hand. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks to be unanimous. Okay. Thank you. I feel like the Wizard of Oz. I'm powerful till the curtain's removed. Thank you. All right, police officer, we're waiting for you.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
It's second, and it's approved. Thank you, one and all.
We got a set.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.